Yes. So how's everybody doing today? Everybody good? I'm good. So my name is Jody Johnson. I'll be the moderator for today. I am a practicing attorney in the area, focused on real estate, cannabis law, particularly the contract formation, compliance, and then property reacquisition through the administrative processes. So that's a bit about me. Keep echoing. But I'm going to pass it to each of the panelists to kind of introduce themselves as well, so we can kind of get a sense of what we're doing today.
My name is Javier Hernandez. I'm a founder and operator of Humble Root. We are a legacy delivery company based here in Sacramento, a social equity delivery company based here in Sacramento. Been operating since 2015.
I am Ashtyn Gibson. I'm the CEO and owner of Urban Roots, a social equity micro business here in Sacramento, California. I pride myself on being one of the only female self-funded cannabis business owners of that stature, micro business. We do have indoor cultivation. Thank you. We have indoor cultivation, we have distribution, manufacturing, and non-storefront retail delivery.
And I'm Mike Snell. I'm a local veteran, and I'm also owner of Off the Charts here in Sacramento, the first black-owned storefront retail. My background from the military was supply chain logistics management, so the crossover into cannabis was almost was pretty seamless for the most part, just understanding policy at this point.
And I like just to take a moment to try to figure out how he got the best microphone up here, because that's the only one that you can hear everybody perfectly. I don't know who you paid, my brother, but like that's a very good investment. So is that better? Hey, look, hey, you ever have that moment where like you feel like you just got in trouble, but you grown, so you're like, am I supposed to be getting in trouble? Like, where'd she come from? But before we kind of get rocking and rolling, we do have questions that we have slated for our panelists. I want to kind of set the stage just a little bit. I think a foundational piece is necessary given the conversation that we're about to have. So real briefly, I'm going to ask the panelists to complete a sentence to kind of lay the groundwork. So don't feel like you got to give a whole like dissertation about what we got to say. Just finish this line for me. Equity is
Justice.
okay. Equity is
Equality.
Equity is restorative justice. It's an ode.
there we go. So I think it's real essential for us to make sure we have a ground level understanding of what equity is in accordance to our panelists, because their answers to these questions are going to be rooted in their perception of what they believe equity is. Okay, so we have justice, equality.
I said restorative justice.
See, man, look, the man with the best mic got the 50-word answer.
Yeah.
But nah, thank you. So we're going to go ahead and roll into the first question. And we're going to go from that side this way. Mm-hmm. So are you passionate about cannabis?
Absolutely, 100%. That's why I gave up. I was 12 years active duty when I decided to step aside. Well, I was forced to step aside, but willingly. I didn't want to continue my career in the military once caught consuming because of my passion that I was using to sustain my PTSD and other issues I had going on. So absolutely, I'm 100% passionate about cannabis.
Thank you.
I am also absolutely 100% passionate about cannabis for numerous reasons. One thing that really sticks with me is that I've been blessed to travel, and I see that it's a universal love and passion amongst other people, which is a beautiful thing to see. It's not just inclusive to one group. So I like that it's there's universal benefits across the board for everybody, which I do love. And then even for myself, I unfortunately caught a drug case, cannabis-related offense, and I ended up utilizing and feeling that passion to get into this industry this way. And it's been a beautiful thing to be able to share the passion, but have the outlet to be able to do it this way in this industry.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the few things I'm willing to go to jail for. It's being a legacy operator. We started this only because we're so passionate about it. Seeing where it has come from, even back then when it was just medical, seeing how it helped people with ailments, kicking pills, kicking opiates. That has been my passion, providing access to people of all backgrounds, access to cannabis that they have voted for.
And I think there's a really good beauty in how contrasting you guys' answers were, right? So like everybody finds a passion within this industry from a different source, right? So mine, I won't lie, when I was growing up, I just had this thing about growing it. And that's where it just sparked. At 8, 9 years old, I found some seeds and put it in the ground, and this beautiful thing I had to take care of, all the trauma I was going through, had the opportunity to take care of something else that was like dependent on me in my life that was chaos. So like it's beautiful to see and hear like people's different push-ins for this industry and like what keeps you motivated and what keeps you grounded, what keeps you pushing, because it's hard. So definitely thank you for that. And similar and kind of piggyback off of that one, next question is, and we'll go from this side that way, what motivated you to get into the cannabis industry, and what keeps you motivated to stay in the industry?
So back in 2011, when we first started getting into the cannabis, by we, I mean me and my co-founders, we've been doing this for a long time. We were afforded the opportunity to work for a family friend, essentially, that had a farm. Seeing, like I said, you know, the people that needed access to it, people of all backgrounds, was one of the things that really drove us to this industry. All being first-generation Americans, it was one of the few industries that we saw the opportunity to get into that didn't have such a high barrier to entry. We knew that cannabis legalization was coming. We thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, you know, people in our background to actually own something, to actually make a difference. We didn't see a pathway into many other things, you know, come on, where we come from.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
I think I would have to say kind of what I said earlier with catching that case, unfortunately. But I think it motivated me, like I said, to do it the right way. And what keeps me motivated is the lack of representation. And I say that as across the board for social equity. To be in this position and to be part of the less than 3% of minority cannabis business owners is a blessing, especially, you know, from the background of, you know, it not starting out the right way, but to be able to come back from that, get a record expunged, and have the platform to be able to do it right, to be able to show other people that look like me in the Black and brown community that it can be done right, is what keeps me motivated. You know, like I said, representation's everything. There's very few women-owned operators in this industry. And yeah, I think, and then the medicinal purposes, to be able to be on the end of growing a plant and being able to package this plant and being able to get it in front of people where it could be beneficial, it could change their lives. I think that's also a beneficial and motivating thing as well.
I appreciate that. Appreciate that.
So me, it started with consumption. From there, again, being active duty military, it became sort of a way to rebel. After Iraq and Afghanistan, I had a different perspective on the world, and I was self-medicating. I started learning the history. That's where the passion really developed, because learning about Harry Anslinger and the Drug Enforcement Agency and how all that was developed, it was all racially based and created to take out BIPOC, all people of color. So that's what motivated me to, like, as I was planning my exit out of the military, that's what motivated me to get into cannabis, was realizing, okay, hey, this was a method or a tool, the war on drugs, to take out my people. And you know what, I want to rebel against that. And all my resilience has been based on that motivation.
Gotcha, appreciate it. So another improv question, we're gonna waterfall it back this way. How many years have you been in the industry?
So I started learning how to cultivate back in 2016. Okay. I knew growers that had a license in Yolo County, but then I knew unlicensed growers that were serving the black market that were in Grass Valley. And so I was just learning, just curious, just wanted to get my hands dirty, learn about the industry. So I started in cultivation, and then from there it led to being a part of the shows and so on and so forth. And what was the question again? Where else were we at? I want to say so since 2016 then. Since 2016, yeah.
Thank you.
For me, it would be about 2010 is when I probably I became passionate or more conscious about the industry. This was back in the day when you can literally just start a business and get on weed maps and start delivering in the little medicinal jars and paper bags. So, and then they had to clean it up and start putting some ordinance in there for us to follow rules. But I think that it just started as a social thing, being able to be with certain people and fellowship, and it'd be a good vibe, a good time. And I think that's when I was initially an athlete, so that wasn't my thing, but I started, realizing the benefits and seeing the benefits. So I'd say about 2010 for myself.
It depends on what you mean by that, as far as like selling weed to all my friends since like '07. But
Wait, hold on, we're not gonna talk about anything illegal.
in a professional capacity, 2011. As Humble Root, the brand that we have now, 2015.
There we go. So to kind of piggyback off of that question, another improv question. Sorry. What are two things that you feel are things that have evolved that need to be changed within the industry, given your history and experience within the industry? So just two things that like now, like as of today, that exist that needs to change.
I'd say the main thing is just being able to come into the light and do things without having to hide what you're doing. Just when we first started our businesses, I'm sure we're all the same. I'm driving around delivering, looking at my rearview mirror nonstop, seeing if there's anyone following me back to the spot. So just like feeling more safe doing what we're doing, And one of the things that stood out to me in the early days is we had an original accountant for us, and he was we were looking to go for licensing and become like a legitimate business, I would say. And I remember he looked at me and he said, "Javier, you guys are a legitimate business. You guys pay taxes, you guys have employees, you guys give them rights. Like everything you do is already a legitimate business. Just because you don't have a license doesn't mean you're not." So to me, that's the one thing, is being like vindicated in what we do and feeling right about what we do.
I like that. Thank you.
I would have to say the ability for more outlets for consumption. I think like just being able to be in that space, certain proximity, be able to consume cannabis in an environment just as you would go to a bar or a club and have a drink, and no one's there to say, okay, well, we need to check before you get in the car. You can be served in, numerous drinks. I think we should have the same capacity to be able to consume in the same space, and make it inclusive for us. I think that would also help destigmatize the negative attitudes around cannabis. We can get together, we can cook and consume cannabis, we can listen to, music or have stand-up comedy the same way as you would go to a concert or anything here in the park. So I think that would be a change that I'd like to see across the board, just giving people a safe space, to be able to consume, to do what they love.
Thank you for that one.
For me, it's generally just the normalization. So that's piggybacking off what Ashtyn was speaking on. The normalization, it's kind of frustrating for me now. Like, I've come from 12 years military background, then a few years real estate, now cannabis, and I still go into some rooms and it's like, oh, here's the weed guy instead of just the businessman or the entrepreneur. And the normalization, it's still we're still battling that because of what's still accepted of just the widespread of alcohol that can be sold in gas stations, grocery stores, wherever. I would like to see that normalization, happen for cannabis, so it is respected as a traditional business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed and highlighted a bit more, because there is a stigma around it. And like, you guys are running legitimate companies and businesses and organizations, and there is no acceptance.
We're taxed higher than anybody else.
That part, right? Hey, look, you doing your due diligence.
Right.
So kind of around that response, right? So kind of like the societal like apprehension to like accept the legitimization of this business, right? This industry. What are some of the hardships that you face as a small business equity operator that you would like to see change? So similar to not having to step into a room and feeling like, oh yeah, that's the weed man over there. Like, what else?
So I'm going to start with, because the problem with it not being normalized, we don't have access to loans, and we don't have access to traditional banking. So like what is it? Not the FDA. No, the business, the federal that'll help you start a business. I'm drawing a blank on SBA. So just like SBA, there's no SBA for cannabis.
Gotcha.
Right. So we rely essentially on equity programs in those cohorts to be the SBA and the technical support and help guide us to the private capital relations and so forth. But it's not. There's nothing that's sustainable or regenerative that can help grow this as of now, like as if we were a traditional business. And that's what frustrates me is just the lack of support. We're being taxed heavily, but there's no representation as far as the support that we get in resources, and that's what's frustrating for me.
Got you. Thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to that, we don't have access to such simple things like tax write-offs. We are still not treated as legitimate businesses in the eye of the federal government, which is like the most harmful things. That type of discrimination is what holds us down.
I didn't even think about that part. That's a good point. That is definitely a good point. Any feedback?
I think one of the challenges is sometimes not just the either openness or transparency too from like the bureau and the state and the city. I think sometimes that's what is damaging to a lot of these smaller businesses and really sustainability is just not knowing what they're getting into sometimes too. You know, you apply for a license, you have, even if you're core or you're not core, you know, it comes with a huge application fee, and then that you're obligated to have to pay, you know, maybe 4 to 5 months of overhead expenses. And some people get into businesses really don't understand that or know that, which then essentially drowns them out so quick. So I think like it's been a hardship, and fortunately I've been able to navigate that, but I know that there's a lot of operators out there who are just trying to get a foot in, and sometimes that's the hard part. It's just not knowing, you know, what comes with it. Hey, we're going to send, you know, fire marshals over. If you do this, that's a $25,000 a day violation. You know, just open transparency on certain things, especially with high fees. As he said, we're paying high taxes. We don't get a break. So just, you know, I think that there should be more from the city, state level with just teaching, giving the tools sustainability, you know.
And one last point that I wanted to make that I had, the predatory capital and operational, you know, partnerships that are out there, equity is definitely targeted for that because there's an understanding that, okay, these folks don't have the business background or business acumen to understand contracts and so on and so forth, which, I mean, your average person in business doesn't even understand contracts. I'm in real estate. There's even businessmen that I was doing, you know, selling houses to, they don't understand contracts. You know what I mean? So with that understanding, that puts us at a high risk to lose an opportunity that was presented to us, you know, just because of not only the clock that was put on people like myself to open a storefront within 3 years, given existing operators, they had 5 years to get their provisional license annualized.
Right.
There's an imbalance there.
Yeah, and I see a lot of that discrepancy from the legal side as well. And unfortunately, I don't think there's enough resources being funneled in to provide just that baseline. Like, usually what I see now is when folks get to me, you've already signed a contract.
Right.
And because you've already signed that contract, you're bound by the terms of that contract unless there's something just so exacerbating that it will null and void the contract. So I think there needs to be more resources available at the startup to where, okay, let me make sure I fully understand this, make sure I fully, because that's what other people are doing.
Like key terms like perpetuity.
Yeah,
and so,
look. And I think like, at least from my standpoint, people don't even know about the administrative hearing process. You get something taken from you, there's due process pieces that are afforded to you. So like I've seen people lose whole quarters worth of product and just think, oh, I just got to take that L. No, actually, you have an administrative process as a citizen that you can go through to reclaim your property. So like even just the baseline of that stuff isn't being translated and transmitted to folks. So I think there needs to be some type of investment in that piece from the locality. So along those lines, though, I'm loving how this is just kind of rolling together. Next question, and again, I think we waterfall this way, so we're gonna go this way this time. What are 2 things you wish you knew about the operational side of the industry that would have helped before you got started?
Man, there's a lot of things. First is the cost of operating the business. The overhead, you know, that takes to get it open is one thing, but the other thing is once you start producing revenue, it's even more expensive to get that revenue. The cost of labor is extremely high in California for a multitude of reasons. And not only that, as I mentioned earlier, the taxation. A lot of people don't realize what they're getting into when it comes to taxes. Like I said, when you don't have ordinary write-offs as a cannabis businesses, you get stuck paying a pretty high effective tax rate. And that's where a lot of businesses that, like a normal business that would be profitable, falls into negative a negative monthly cash flow, and that's just strictly due to taxes. So that's the one thing, is make sure you're putting your taxes away into a certain account and not touching that, because that'll be the quickest thing that'll get you shut down, is being delinquent on those things. And that's also the biggest payments that you'll be making. The second thing is security. In the beginning days of licensing, the DCC, formerly the BCC, was posting everybody's address publicly, and so there was a lot of there's still a lot of break-ins happening, but there was even more happening back then. And although the cost of security is extremely high, it's the only thing that will protect your product. We had a break-in in 2019 that happened where they sold about $250,000 worth of product. The police were alerted. They sent a community service officer 8 hours later, filed a report. Nothing ever came of it. So that's when I learned that they're not there to protect you. They're not there to do anything from you. You're the only one that's going to protect your own stuff. So you got to take that seriously. The cost may be high, but it's worth it.
Thank you.
I think I would say the same thing Javier said, and to piggyback off of that is just really understanding too how to protect yourself. Insurance, we took a loss as well, $250,000 loss, and our payout was $10,000, and that was because of how the policy was written out. We thought we were protecting ourselves, and it wasn't. But I mean, everything else, like you said, just really understanding, if you're getting a building, and those are the provisional things that you have to do first to even bring them in to do a walkthrough, that to prepare to potentially spend a lot of overhead for months. When I first started with my first building in 2015, it took 2 to 3 years to get licensed. I was in social equity at the time. This was before they had a program roll out. So I'm just trying to, get my foot in the door. And that's 2.5 years of spending, $60,000 a month with no revenue. Fortunately, I was able to still sustain, but that came from other businesses, other assets. And obviously, when you're trying to sustain your one business, you don't want to use assets from other businesses to sustain that. So I think that's big. It's just understanding, like you said, the cost, understanding too what it means to run that type of business, because that's sometimes the missing part too. You can't just open up a shop and start selling weed. It doesn't work like that. There are taxes, there are other things that you have to be aware of that can either make you or break you. So,
Thank you for that.
For me, it was clarity on the conditional use permit. So, for example, the 10 people that were granted the right to apply for a storefront retail license. So storefront retail, for those that aren't aware, that's not a license that anybody can just go to the city and apply for. It's almost like how they set it up. It's almost like you want to do an entire new building build out. So you have to do what we call an RFQ, a request for qualification, but traditionally that would be an RFP, a request for proposal, where you submit that to the city, planning department, so on and so forth, get all that approved, then you get your proper licensing that's necessary for the business to operate. So it wasn't clear to me in the beginning, not only which buildings would qualify for storefront retail, but which buildings already had the conditional use permit that would have saved me a ton of time on chasing my tail on, let me talk to this broker, this building looks like it's suitable. Those requirements weren't necessarily drawn out clearly for us. Right. And that's what makes me appreciate now all of us here on the stage. We're essentially cannabis pioneers, because we're going through the head bumps right now, so that people behind us, we can educate them and give them a streamlined process. Like, you don't want to go that route, bro. I already been there. I can tell you that's not the route to go. And then again, just piggybacking again, the predatory arrangements. You have even locals that will waste your time just so they can get a piece of your opportunity, and that's what's really frustrating is trying to weed through who's legit, who's really about business, and who are the ones that are just either trying to lock you up and hold you out the way so you don't interfere with their business. It's not what the industry was when in 2015, 2016, when I found a devoted interest. Now it's crony capitalism, it's crony politics, it's gross now.
And I'm gonna throw something out there. Hope one of y'all take the bite. Just give me my proper. Hey, Joe said it on the stage that one day. I wish somebody would come up with, even if it's an app or a list, just something to help with that vetting process, right? Because like what you don't know, and you don't know who the people you should go to. That doesn't exist right now. Even within the social equities programs, there's still like a void of where like, okay, I can actually go talk to that person for this thing and know exactly what result I'm gonna get. So hopefully, as you guys are social champions and pioneers, your roadmap includes something to where the next person or next wave of folks are like, okay, this person is vetted, this organization is vetted, this is the process that's vetted, and I can go through that as well. So that needs to be created. So I just want to throw that out there. Just say, hey, yo, Joe said it on the stage one time. You know, yeah, that's all I need. Along those lines, though, I want to go ahead and shift to the next question. What are your thoughts on cannabis equity programs, and how have they helped you?
I'll go first. So, everyone here at OCM in Sacramento, they've done a great job of trying to do everything they can to support us. I think that the social equity programs do what they can to support social equity operators. However, I feel like it's like slapping a Band-Aid on a huge gushing hole. The industry is not set up to have small operators be successful. So like temporary grants, temporary loans, those only solve problems for so long. The industry has been set up, like Mike said, for predatory deals to come in because there's no capital available. The tax rates that we're put on, the licensing fees that we have to put on, the overhead fees that we have to put up through, those expenses don't go away. So the social equity program has been set up here in Sacramento to give you one-time resources, where most businesses need ongoing resources. To that point too, as businesses continue to scale, those resources fall off. Just because social equity businesses are growing does not mean that they don't need support anymore. If anything, that's when they need more support. Scaling cannabis businesses is extremely difficult. And I'm gonna sound like I'm beating a dead horse because gross taxes. Those taxes scale with how much you make. So even as you're becoming more efficient, those taxes aren't giving you a break. You're still paying full tax on any efficiency that you are producing. So social equity, I think they do what they can, but I think that this is a much deeper systemic issue in California cannabis that needs to be addressed, starting with taxation and some of the legislative things that really make it difficult to do business.
Gotcha. And I know there's some things in this cycle right now that's kind of being proposed and reviewed and voted on. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens after this year, this legislative cycle.
Yeah, there are some small things happening. I will say there's a tax bill right now, because another thing that does happen is we pay taxes on taxes. So there's compounding taxes on every level. The cultivator grows something, they get taxed. They sell it to a distributor, they get taxed, and then I buy it and I get taxed.
Yep.
That product has been taxed 3 times by the city of Sacramento alone.
Yep.
And that's why we're seeing these prices that we see, where it's really difficult to compete with the illicit market.
And
you can get drunk for $10 at a bar or $15 at a bar and go crash a car, but for actual medicine, we're paying absurd prices. It's insane.
And I think again that is a legislative piece. There is something in the works, but I think more and more needs to happen. And there is a question that I'm gonna ask you guys in a little bit about that part, but thank you for that. I think it does highlight that piece. That taxation piece is a huge hurdle that I don't think people kind of plan for. So that's perfect. Thank you for that.
We're on the how can equity programs do more, or which one?
No, so we're on. What are your thoughts on cannabis equity programs? Have they helped you, and how? Hold on, Mister. I got the good mic. You can't just skip over. Look, we talking about equity. You want to just skip over? Look. I'm just saying, damn, we up here talking about equity and we skipping people. That's inclusive.
I've been waiting for this day, man. I'm locked and loaded, man. I've been waiting to fire up, man. Let me tell you. No.
Almost to each its own on this, to everyone. I can only speak from people that I've had either, personal experiences with and understood their experiences. For me, it's been great. It's not the best, but I think that, you can't expect, you can only expect so much. And I think that's with anything across the board. You still have to get out, you still got to do it, you got to be diligent to do it and get things done. But I mean, for someone to come in and pay my consultation, to, put my application up, for them to come in and pay my $47,000 license application every year, city and state level. For me as a small business owner, that's a huge difference. That's somebody's salary that can then take me to elevated heights. And so, the first year, I don't know how it went after the years I was there. I was part of the first program. But, there was tons of resources. We had to do 50 hours of studying to be certified as a social equity, business operator. And so that forced me to, get more educated about things. It forced me to understand the laws and, what's expected. They did have people there that would try to help, make sure you're not getting into crappy, business contracts and relationships. And to this day, those are still people who, if I want to expand, say, hey, I have this investor for you, I'm going to have this in person for you. So for myself, I think because I haven't had the expectation for them to do so much, I just even appreciate having the license expedited and not waiting for a year versus 1 month. That's a huge difference. So I have nothing but good things to say. I think that we're moving forward, and I think that's what's notable. We've come a long way in this industry, and so for there to even be a program in the state to allocate funds and say, hey, this is going to be inclusive for this group, I think that's still a great thing in a forward direction.
That's definitely a win, and I think I'm gonna have a follow-up question for you in a little bit, because I think because of your unique experience, and like I heard a couple of times that you had to go figure some things out, like you were actually self-educating yourself. I wonder what, and this again, it'll be a follow-up after I let my man over here answer, but it's gonna be a follow-up. Like what is it that, like, if you could change in the equity programs, knowing like this thing is probably going to go federal here in a little bit, it's going to create a whole new like wave and like whole new different barriers and disparities. Like what will be key for the information given within those equity programs that folks need to know? So like, just put that in the back of your mind, so that's going to be a follow-up.
Well, yeah, no, that always crosses my mind. I'm always thinking 10 years ahead, 5 years ahead, and I'm always thinking about, okay, once federal descheduling happens and federal deregulation happens, what happens to the retail license? Does Walmart or does Walmart or any CVS, do they get to sell cannabis over the counter, or is it still maintained like an alcohol license essentially, and only those with the retail license can vend cannabis still? But going back to the equity programs, generally speaking, yes, the program is helpful. Does it need improvement? Absolutely. Anything that has just started, there's nothing that's come out. Hell, Tesla's still having kinks. You still seeing these things catch on fire out on the road, right? So I say that the program is beneficial, yes, but it does need room for improvement because it is obviously developmental, and we have kinks to work out. Some things were put in policy or were organized just for benefit of only certain people and not the industry overall. So, with that said, yes, equity. The equity programs are vital because it also brings these communities together. So it would be hard for us to organize without this kind of program as an umbrella for us to formulate under and communicate, work together with, and help each other elevate each other's businesses.
And I think that's key. I think one, that creation of space of like-minded folks and folks that are really trying to move in the same trajectory is huge, right? So you actually gave us a segue to that follow-up question. We're going to waterfall this way. If you could change or add to just two things to an equity program, right, that you felt as we're moving into this new terrain, this new whole new campaign that's about to happen in a minute, what are two things that you would like to add to an equity program to better prepare the people coming behind you?
So what I would like to see, and this would even be policy. So equity, we should be the experimental when it comes to tax policy for the industry. So the tax base, in my opinion, should be widened when it comes to cannabis. As far as our allocated tax revenue goes towards certain measures locally that assist youth and homeless, which I'm all 100% for. However, it shouldn't be solely reliant upon an industry within its infancy when you have alcohol and petroleum that are that don't see the elevated tax demand like we see, and they have a much harsh impact on the environment. And we're talking about a sustainable future, which I love the term regenerative because sustainable has an end date. So regenerative, that should be the focus of how we can widen the tax base so we can sustain an actual healthier future.
So hold on, before I kick it to the next panelist, when you say regenerative, right? How do you explain that to a new small business owner so that way they can kind of push and invest in the policy necessary?
Regenerative is all resources and everything is reinvested to help the growth. So like Ashtyn was talking about how $40K in taxes that could have went towards someone's salary that could help grow the business. That's regenerative thinking, and we keep thinking sustainable. That's just keep putting a Band-Aid on something that's gonna die out soon enough. We keep giving it CPR instead of actually medicating, giving it the nutrients it needs to actually grow and flourish. And that's what I'm having an issue with, and I'm seeing. I would like to see change in the future.
So I'm gonna give you a little pressure. I'm hoping that you go, sit wherever you sit, where you do your thinking, and put that on paper, put it in writing, right? Because I think that you're onto a concept that needs to be explained, needs to be expanded upon, and really like developed. Because if it dies with you, if it moves with you, if it just continues to be in your head, it will never be addressed.
Never be a thing.
So I'm gonna put the onus on you, my brother, to sit down and figure out how to operationalize that piece and train people on that piece. Because if you don't, it won't happen.
Oh, I got the right people around me to formalize and make that happen.
All right,
Sure.
good. Hey, look, like I said, as long as you go sit where you need to sit, we all good. All right, waterfall.
Where we at?
If you had the power to change or add to equity programs, just two things, what would you do? Like two things that you felt is necessary for the next wave of folks to be successful. Like what are the two things you would want to give them in that sense?
Access to people that look like us, that have been through it, you know. I mean, before this, I was in school to be a doctor, and I always felt like, you know, how can I prescribe somebody something if I haven't been through the symptoms myself? How can I like tell you this is what it's gonna do if I haven't? And so I think that that's important. You know, you have people who are running these programs that really don't understand what it is, like what we do go through, you know, the sleepless nights and the hurt, the obstacles we go through and what we have to overcome to be able to be sustainable. Right. And I also think, sustainability is important because you can continue to grow, but you have to know what to do with that. What you know, like they can give us money, they can give us all these things, but you know, still you have to still know how to run a business, how to manage a business, how to be a leader, how to get people to come in and do their job, you know, how to properly pay taxes. That is what sustains you and keeps it going to be able to elevate into something bigger and to grow. And so, you know, I think that that's important too. They, like you said, it's a temporary fix. They say, here, we're gonna give you this opportunity to be a part of this industry, but you throw us out there and then that's it.
With a half-ass investment.
And so I think like, you know, following up and having other programs that still teach us those sustainability. Some people get in this and don't even know how to still run a business. You know, like, it's going to take more than just getting in to grow. You still got to run a business. And if you're not running the business, then you have no business, you know? So I think I would like to see more resources like that. Just how to set up a business, how to properly pay taxes, how to find a great CPA, how to find tax breaks. You know, there's certain things. What are the loopholes so that we can still continue to grow?
I like that. And just a quick follow-up question, because I know we talked about it earlier about the vetting process, right? What I've seen in the last like maybe 2 or 3 years has been like this influx of like consultants. Everybody named Mama is a consultant now.
Golly,
so like,
man.
how do you navigate, or how do you teach folks to navigate through that? Because what we have is people that have gone through the experience, right? Not necessarily successful, but they've gone through the experience, and now they're holding themselves out as consultants. People are listening to that, and then that's when it gets on my desk, it's like, you did what?
No, it
needs to be certified by the city. Somebody needs to come in and certify that consultant group, that company, make them go through the same test and training that we had to with even just core, but on a totally different level. Whatever it is that you're doing, we're going to test you.
Yeah.
Just like if you were a professor, you have to go through certain levels, right, to be able to be accredited to speak to students and teach them. So I think that it should be the same thing, especially when you're, you know, cannabis consultation is not cheap. So, you know, fortunately the city paid for my consultation and they still messed me up, but that was on their dime. And still for me, I felt like, man, if they would have just invested in the right consultant, the right agency, I probably wouldn't, you know, but I'm grateful for that, and that was why I'm happy for the vetting process, because now I know how to run my own business. I don't have to go out and put my faith into giving somebody money and have no idea or the ins and outs of how to run that business. But I think if it was like, you know, these companies are accredited,
There we go.
and it's on the site, you know, the Sacramento website. I think even that alone would make a difference.
Yeah, because then if they mess up, you just come and sue their ass. Like, you just call it what it is. Accreditation, accountability gives you different avenues.
Yeah, no, and the vetting thing is big too, because even through the RFQ process, there was folks that I feel strongly did not have any honest responses on their application.
Man.
And for me, someone that took the time to put in effort and go through my entire, not even realizing, like, Jesus, it was all surprising me looking back on my history and everything that I've done. I was like, oh my God. And then to still be in an arena with folks that nowhere near the amount of body work that I've done,
Right.
and they're out here flashing themselves as these businessmen, and they have been nowhere in that arena. It's frustrating. It's a slap in the face. For me, that's why even during the pandemic, I focused more on cannabis instead of just trying to be out there as a realtor, because there's less market share. And these people that are actually trying to feed their families, who am I to try to step out and be a perpetrator? And I'm not even passionate about real estate like that. And that's what I have an issue with within the cannabis industry. Folks that are just opportunists versus actually activists and actually rebellious and trying to do something different in the industry.
Say that. And I will be not doing my job up here if I didn't just say it. I think we need a process as well to kind of everybody start coming together, because I heard you say advocate, right? And what happens sometimes is you have advocates that are pushing for what seems to be the same thing, but actually those interests are diverged instead of converge. And there has to be some way to kind of respect each one, because what we don't want to do is continue this process of separatism and like really non-inclusive like practices, because that's what they'll do. They'll get the four of us, right? Have us all going in the right direction, and then one of us is like, look, that part over there is actually where I want to be at, and then they'll create divides amongst us, right? So instead of it being 4 strong, now it's 3, then it's 2, then it's 1, and everybody's on their own. So I think we need to have not only a vetting process, but a process of like information sharing, because like one person's like push for like policy or ledge or law, like all that piece, is somebody else's like downfall, right? Because it has to come at the expense. You can't have perfect like harmony all the time, but at least if you know it's not done out of malice, I think that piece is like huge, right? Because then you can still build with that person. Like, okay, we might not just be in the same boat, but we're gonna keep pushing because we need to. You know what I'm saying?
And I'm all for inclusiveness, but the part that the separatists, it's for, I honor and respect those that were doing this illegitimately, technically, doing it illegitimately, but were successful at it. And it's a slap in the face of those folks that were taking those risks for these new guys that just come up and pop up as if they've just been these expert businessmen, and they're in the forefront. And the people that really deserve to be in that position, they're still struggling to sustain in the industry, and it's not right, and it frustrates me. And that's where we do need better vetting in this industry when it comes to the equity programs, because some folks take it as an opportunity to just grab grant money and run off with it, and go buy a chain or go get a car at a flat, and it's. I don't want to see that, because that looks bad on us as an equity community when we're talking about we need more resources, we need more money, but then you have these opportunists that just take it and run with it as an opportunity to, for their small network, hey, I'm somebody now, but they're not doing any work.
And I think again, like that's gonna have to be a full circle conversation for another platform, because I think there's a lot of like room for that conversation and necessary conversation moving down the road.
Absolutely.
And I apologize, man. I'm over here not doing my job. I've just been so neglectful. I'm
listening. I'm taking it all in too.
So, along the same lines, 2 things, if you could add to or change about equity programs to help the next wave. Mind you, I'm not talking about helping you guys. I'm talking about the next people behind y'all. 2 things.
So one thing that the city was doing in the past was having like regular meetings with social equity people, and that kind of goes to build on what they're saying, which is the community. That's where I've gotten the most information from, is from like-minded people, other operators. Those are the people who have given me the best opportunities to learn something. So bringing those back, I think are crucial. That's how I met Mike. That's how I met Matt Ashtyn, through the social equity program. So I think opportunities like that are important, but I think even more important than that is creating a clear line of communication between ourselves and the regulatory bodies. There's many times where I feel like I'm at a loss, like, hey, there's this big issue, and I feel like I'm in it alone, and there's no one at the city to talk to help, bring light to this, right? Like, I might have conversations with a representative there, but it doesn't ever really go further than that. So I think creating these roundtables with the stakeholders and, being able to communicate with our legislative bodies a little bit better would create better rules for us.
Okay. All right, so I just got the that button they hit when you say time's up.
Red light.
Yeah, I got that a couple of times.
The red light.
So what I'm gonna do is we're gonna close out. We're gonna do a quick waterfall. We got 2 questions I'm gonna ask, right? And the first one will go this way, real quick. We'll speed through. So people frequently refer to social equity programs as failures. As an equity operator, do you support this sentiment?
So I don't think the program nor the people in it are failures. I think the system has been set up to make people fail. Once again, with the taxes, it's just not a sustainable business model. So until something big changes in that capacity, I can't say that the program has been a failure, but just the industry as it all has been letting down its stakeholders.
Cool. Thank you.
Ditto to that.
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, no, it's developmental. That's where I'm at with it. It's developmental. It's necessary. We just have to make sure it's going to take people like us to talk about our trials and errors and the struggles, and we just need the support and open ears from the local and state government versus them trying to tell us what we need to do. And it's like, no, it should be the other way around. You guys are learning from us. We're the operators, and that's what's required.
Yeah, and just to chime in, one thing that I think is part of this that perpetuates this is how heavily we are taxed. And one unfair thing that I see is that we are victims of what happened because of the war on drugs, right? And we are the same people that are tasked on paying the money forward to repair that. With our tax dollars, that's what's being used. I don't think that's fair at all. That should be diverted, like Mike said, from other industries, which are causing issues.
Yeah.
We are, so backwards to put that earnest on us.
Okay, I respect that, receive that. So last question, waterfall from that side. How can equity programs do more to support cannabis equity businesses?
It can do more. It can do more by, for sure, the vetting process. The vetting process for its issuance of special licenses, and then additionally vetting those that are coming in as the I don't want to say host. I guess host in certain education forums or situations, just to make sure that they're not, because some of those can be predatory and out there poaching. Opportunities for those that may have gotten a grant and they're like, oh, why don't you come partner with me and I'll take your money, and then run off, and you don't come out with any new product that you were destined to come out with if you wouldn't have worked with me. So there's just the industry the program can be better finding more ways to protect equity operators in the future going forward.
There we go. So we're gonna vet them and certify their asses. Copy.
I'll make mine quick. I think just with more, post support just after the program for people that go in, just follow up, wraparound services, support. I think even what he said, just being able to support us too with some of the funding that's going, that we pay into with our taxes, but investing that back in us to protect our businesses. Theft is a big thing in the city, especially here in Sacramento. So I think local jurisdictions with social equity programs should definitely have something there to put in place for us. And then also using some of that funding for more private equity or venture capitalists so that it can support the cannabis industry, especially those in social equity. Something that's maybe small, it's just a small private equity firm that's just put in place for cannabis business operators that are social equity.
Like an SBA for equity.
I like that. And I want to, real quick, because I know we're being recorded, I want to make sure that we're not misconstruing what she said. She didn't say we want more police and be over-policed. What she said is we want supports to stop some of this stuff, okay? We don't want the police. We just need supports in the middle, okay? So thank you for that.
I think what they can do is represent our interests better. I think we've heard one thing here loud and clear, and that's about reducing taxes. The way to fight the illicit market, as we have learned over the last 30 years, is not through enforcement. It's not through putting people in jail. It's through providing an alternative that is on the same playing field. The taxation does not put us on the same playing field, and that's why you're seeing such action on the illicit market. So supporting your equity operators by creating that engagement with the regulators, with the governing bodies, and really giving us leeway to talk. These rules change multiple times a year. We only get 1 or 2 stakeholder meetings a year. There needs to be more, communication, I think, with the stakeholders.
I like that. Okay. Well, definitely thank you all for your time, your input, your insight. Hopefully we got some things resolved today.